Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson and hello Sean Aylmer.
Hello Michael.
Sean, on weekdays it's all about the Fast Five, as in the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. We are still going to keep it on the weekend to 5 minutes, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week, our favourite story, the sleeper story, which is one that might not be getting the attention that it probably should be getting, and the most remarkable story. So let's get into it. What, Sean, do you think was the biggest story of the week?
Well, Michael, I think we're going to agree on this one. The US Federal Reserve's decision to start lifting interest rates and what that means for financial markets. Throw in some pretty extraordinary inflation figures locally and you have a contender not just for the biggest story of the week, but a pretty good contender for the biggest story of the year. Long story short, price pressures have been flowing through the economy for 6 months. A few reasons for that: supply chain disruptions, production disruptions, soaring shipping costs. People are buying stuff like TVs, cars and petrol and not services. That's pushing the cost of those sorts of things up. The theory was that these price pressures would pass, but it looks like they're pretty sticky. They're going to hang around, and the US Federal Reserve this week said it was set to start lifting interest rates in the world's biggest economy. The Reserve Bank of Australia meets next week and is under plenty of pressure to do something similar. Now, this triggered a big sell-off in equity markets. The Aussie dollar's fallen back. Bond yields have soared. Massive story for the economy.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that one. The economy is the biggest story of the week. Everyone's talking about interest rates, from the volatility on the share market and then the flow-on effect to house prices throughout the year. So, yep, you are absolutely right on that one. Most remarkable story this week, I would suggest that it is the COVID numbers. When we were talking late last year, Sean, we were talking about the modelling in New South Wales that suggested the state could get to 20,000 or 25,000 COVID cases a day by the end of January. And everyone thought that was kind of worst case scenario modelling and wouldn't actually eventuate. Well, it's now the end of January, and yes, it's been around that 20,000 case number in the last week in New South Wales. But in the meantime, the state's actually peaked at 3 to 4 times that since the end of December. The good news, though, is that in some states, New South Wales, Victoria, and say in the ACT as well, the peak does appear to have passed. There'll likely be another rise when all the kids are back at school, but in most cases, the numbers are heading in the right direction, particularly with the 7-day averages. It's, for me, the most remarkable story this week just because of how far we've come and everything that the country has been through in the last 6 weeks. It's pretty incredible.
I think that's a pretty good call. I'll just throw in another one, and that's what's happened in the tech sector. It's related to that change in interest rate expectations. Now, some of the biggest tech companies in the world have been hammered recently. Apple was worth nearly $3 trillion late last year. Since then, it's lost about $500 billion worth of value. Now, that's more than half the value of the combined ASX 200, and that's just by one company. Others, Microsoft, Tesla, Netflix, Nvidia, Meta, Amazon, all been sold off. Same deal in Australia. WiseTech Global is off 28%. Xero's down 25%. The buy now, pay later operators have been plundered, while REA and Seek are down sort of close to 20%. Just the speed and scope of the sell-off in the tech sector is quite remarkable.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. The sleeper story this week, I've got a suggestion here, and it is both a little bit of a cheat, really, because I want to talk about the jobs boom, and I know you're going to laugh at me and ask how the jobs boom is a sleeper story. Well, it's because the unemployment numbers came out last week and everyone was still in holiday mode, and I don't think everyday people like me would have realised last week in holiday mode just how significant an unemployment rate of 4.2% is. It's the lowest rate since 2008, which is amazing. It's having such a massive impact on the economy. The budget bottom line has been boosted. Social security payments fell by $1.9 billion. That's a lot of people back in work, no longer relying on government support. And then you look at the COVID-induced worker shortages affecting pretty much every industry. Even farmers are reporting delays in shearing sheep. You would not want to be a woolly sheep in the middle of summer finding out that you've got to wait another 8 weeks to get sheared.
No, look, I think it's a bit of a rationalisation that that's the sleeper story, but I kind of agree with you. I think that people didn't take as much notice as they should. So happy to go with that one.
Well, I'm glad we could agree on something. Finish us off, Sean, with the favourite story of the week. What was it for you this week?
I just thought it was wonderful that Dylan Alcott became the Australian of the Year. He's an incredible individual, an incredible ambassador for his sport, an incredible ambassador for the disabled, and his attitude to life is absolutely inspiring. I'm proud I live in a country that has Dylan Alcott as Australian of the Year, and that's why it's my favourite story.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Look at that. We agreed on multiple stories this week. That's really quite impressive.
That'll change in coming weeks.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. There we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business from the last week. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and we look forward to your company then.